Hello and welcome to this demonstration of tailspin collinear marking tools. Historically, dovetail joinery forced you to choose sides in woodworking's longest running feud, pins versus tails. Our collinear marking tools offer a better way. We've eliminated the awkward balancing act required to mark out the second side of your joint. With tailspin tools, you'll mark out both sides of your joint, or even your entire project, before you ever reach for your saw. I'll show you how. The tools used in this video are pre-production prototypes. The actual tailspin tools are made from GP22, a high-grade ABS. This makes them more durable and easier to use. Collinear means points on a single line, and that's what we provide. Instead of eyeballing a square and an angle gauge, we use physical registration to mark out all three sides of both the pin board and the tail board. The facets and the offsets designed into our tools are the keys to collinear marking. I'll assume you're starting with flat and square stock. Take the parts for your project and arrange them on the bench in the way you're going to assemble them. Number your corners and mark your outside surfaces. So far, this is exactly what you're used to. With tailspin, the first step is to fold the corner around so that the outside faces are together, align them, and secure them in your vise. Step 2 is to lay out the joint spacing. You can use whatever tools you're used to, or even just eyeball it. I've walked these off with dividers. With your spacing established, the only marks you'll make are with a 0.7mm mechanical pencil across the common line of the outside faces. With your spacing marked, take your boards out of the vise and open them up so that the outside faces are facing you, and re-secure them in the vise side by side. I like to put the tailboard on my right. Here's where we start using tailspin tools. Take one of your tools, put the body on the top edge with the blade pointing up. Put your 7mm mechanical pencil on the mark, slide your blade into contact, and mark out your first two sides. Take the second tool, put it in the opposite orientation, slide it into contact with the first, and make your third mark. Slide that tool down, put your pencil in the next mark, slide the body into contact, mark the two sides, put the second tool on the other side into physical contact again, and mark your third side. We'll continue this way down the board. When you reach the pin board, the magic starts. In the past, you would take your saw and cut out your tails, then balance your tails on top of your pin board in order to mark out the second side of your joint. We're going in a different direction. We're going to take the tailspin tool, flip it over on the other side, put our pencil in the collinear mark, and mark out two sides of the joint. Take our opposing tool, slide it into contact as before, mark out the third side of the joint, and continue on down the line. Again, make contact, mark, mark, use the second tool to get the third side. Because of the fact that we're working off the same spacing marks, we know that these lines are going to be perfect. You may have noticed that we skipped the first and the last marks on the boards. That's because we don't have bearing surface for the tools. We work around that by swapping the boards in the vise to get those two surfaces on the inside where there's plenty of bearing surface available. Now we can mark out the last of our joint. Once we've made these marks, we mark out all of the waste so we know what to remove. We've just marked out an entire set of dovetail joints without ever picking up a saw. When we take our boards out of our vise and we bring them together, you can see what we mean by collinear marking. The lines for the pins and the tails are in exactly the same place on both boards. The joint should fit right off the saw. With the boards back in our vise, we can begin cutting our joint. Use any technique you're proficient with. I like to use a guide block to start my cuts. You're cutting on the waist side of the line so that you're touching the line without taking the line. Because I like to cut on the same side of the line each time, with one side cut, what I do is turn the boards around. I'm also taking the opportunity to move the outside edges to the inside, which allows me to be able to cut those last lines. Now that we've cut the lines of our joint, we can move on to removing the waste. Remove the waste the way you always have. Use whatever techniques you're most comfortable with. With all of that removed, I'll just cut off the shoulders using the guide blocks. With the shoulders cut, all that's left is to pare down to the lines. Let's see how they fit. That is a very nice fit right off the saw. As always, it depends on how good you are with your saw and your chisel, but getting there is a lot easier. Using tailspin, work like this can be accomplished without the awkward balancing act of marking out your tails from your pins or your pins from your tails. Thanks for watching.